All right, so I think we have everyone this morning. Let me say good morning to the first meeting of this particular PPIC, Portsmouth Port and Industrial Institute. Again, it's April 27th, 2021. Couple housekeeping things. If we could have everyone on mute until you're called on. Certainly understand this morning we have some difficulties, but what we will do is for the individuals that we can't see right now, if you want to say something, again, you'll have to just jump in because I can't really see if you're kind of raising your hand or things of that nature. And I appreciate you all's patience as we try to work through this. But if you could stay on mute until you're called on, that would be great. Again, want to say welcome this morning. I think before we start, we typically have to read this um, declaration with regards to the governor's declaration. So in accordance with the Governor Ralph Northam's declaration of a state of emergency due to novel coronavirus, Executive Order 51, dated March 12, 2020, and the local declaration of emergency ratified by the Portsmouth City Council, and due to the coronavirus pandemic, which is continuing in the Commonwealth of Virginia, this meeting of the Portsmouth Port and Industrial Commission is being held via video conference on the 27th day of April, 2021, without a quorum present in the 6th floor conference room in City Hall, and that is in order to reduce the likely spread of the coronavirus. Each PPIC member is participating from their home. This meeting is being held in accordance with Portsmouth City Ordinance 2020-102. Notice of public access and participation to this electronic meeting was posted on the PPIC and city websites, and comments to the board about this meeting were received by economic development staff via the Port Eco, and that's PORTECO at portsmouthva.gov email address. Again, let me say welcome this morning. I believe we have maybe with us Councilman Battle. I think he will be joining us later this morning. Typically, as we start, we would have a roll call. So when I call your name, if you can just say here, and then we will move through the agenda. We'll start off with Ms. Allen.
Present.
Ms. Mateo.
I'm here.
Ms. McSwain.
Here.
Mr. Parr.
Here.
Ms. Pena.
Present.
And Ms. Rogers Garner.
Present.
All right, thank you. We do have a quorum. At this moment, the next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from the February 23rd, 2021 meeting. Before we take a motion to approve in a second, if we could have Mr. Jeff Miller remind us, this board, even though this is a new board, this board can approve the minutes for that meeting, correct?
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Yes, the approval of the minutes is an administrative action. It's not a certification that everything's 100% accurate, but it is a necessary administrative action. So the fact that no one on the board right now was actually on the board at the time of the meeting that's covered by the minutes does not preclude you from voting to approve the minutes.
Thank you, sir. So you all received the copy of the minutes with your packet. I would need a motion and a second for approval of the minutes.
I make a
Motion for
motion that we approve the minutes.
All right, and I apologize. Who was that? Is that Ms. McKee?
Sarah Rogers Garner.
Yeah, Rogers Garner. Okay, thank you, Ms. Rogers Garner.
And it's
can I get a
Amira,
second?
second.
All right. And any discussion of the motion? All right, hearing none. Ms. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Bethia,
Yes.
thank you. Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Ms. Pena,
Yes.
Ms. Rogers Garner.
Yes.
All right, thank you. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda would be the financial report. And this is typically given by Ms. Patty Phillips from our finance department. Ms. Phillips, I believe you are on this morning.
I see. Can you hear me? Good morning, everyone.
Yes, ma'am.
In your package are two sets of financials, one for the month of February and one for the month of March. I'm going to review only March, but of course, if you have questions on any of them, feel free to ask me either now or contact me later. But I'm going to start with the statement of net position, which is basically your balance sheet. The commission has $1,071,129. It owns two parcels of property at Burton's Point. It owes a little bit to the city because city pays its bills and later the city gets reimbursed. And unrestricted net position of $1,505,902. Going now to the statement of revenues, the next statement, please. Statement of revenues, expenses, and changes in net position, which is in the old terminology, the income statement. You have operating revenues through March of $5,654. You've got some contractual services, $8,817. Economic business development expenses of $6,032, and then other miscellaneous of $1,231. So total of $16,080. Operating loss of $10,426. You have some investment income on your account, bringing your change in net position to $9,606 negative, and so the net position is $1,505,901. There's also a budgetary comparison. I'm not going to go into detail on that. You are have not spent some of the money. I think business development went over budget just a tad. I think the budget was $4,500 and you spent $6,032. So just a small amount, but overall you're well within the budget. There's only 3 more months in the year. So some of these things will get spent and some will not. And if I can answer any questions, I'll try. I know this is the first meeting for all of you, and you may not be familiar with all this yet, but I will be happy to try to clarify.
Ms. Phillips, thank you. Could you speak to the contractual other line item on the previous report?
Yes, I think it's primarily auditing expenses from the audit was done in the early part of the fiscal year for the prior fiscal year. That's the majority of it.
Okay, because I saw there was a line item for auditing, and then there was
Yes.
one for other.
Yeah, what they did is they combined. On the other, I'm going to turn to Brian and let him. We combined those two items for the income statement. Brian?
I believe that's correct. We do have some other expenses that do come up from time to time that are categorized as contractual other, where we may need to contract with a vendor. I believe in the case of our most recent financial reports, we have had some work performed on the Burton's Point Road properties where we had a gate installed, and I think that's probably what you're seeing in either the February or March report.
Okay, and would it be possible by the next meeting to get the line items for the business development, the 6,000 that we spent on that, or if you can just speak to it now?
When you say the line items, are you really talking about individual payments?
Would you go back to the previous report on the slide or show the PDF?
Give us one moment.
Okay. You,
The expenses,
There's a slight lag when we put this on the screen.
the economic business development, the 6,000, what was this spent on? You don't have to give like a purchase by purchase report, but just overall for the new board.
Brian, I think he's asking the types of costs that go into that line item. Can't hear you, Rob.
Sure. Typically, business development can include items such as marketing and advertising expenses for PBIC properties. Things of that nature may come into play with business development.
Has the 6,000 we've spent year to date been for the advertisement of the Burton properties?
We'd have to run an expense report to get you, a specific by item cost, which we can do and bring to you at your next meeting.
Yes, please.
Sir, I have a question as well. This is Sarah speaking. What kind of advertisement is done for the business development property?
So from a standpoint of marketing, whether we, have some type of, paid advertisements to showcase the property, whether it's on, what is called CoStar, which is a commercial real estate website, and things of that nature. So if we're looking at, or if there's a mailing that we've done, or again, if there's some type of digital advertising, that's what typically goes into advertising the site. We don't have a broker representing the site. Our staff is the one that is advertising and promoting and pushing the site.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Ms. Allen.
For contractual legal, do we use outside attorneys, or are these the attorneys that are already on city payroll that we budgeted $10,000 for?
So yes, that is the, and Jeff Miller, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but that is the line item that is associated with internal staff. You all have not had the need at this point to utilize outside attorneys.
Yes, that's correct. Several years ago, both PPIC and EDA had outside counsel, and it grew to be very expensive. And so they requested that the city's attorney's office undertake representation. And city attorney's office at the time, this is probably 10 years ago, before I got here, agreed to do that. And the quid pro quo was that $10,000 would be transferred from each of EDA and PPIC annually to the city attorney budget. So it goes into the office budget, and that's what the $10,000 is. But we have not had the need to use outside attorneys for PPIC since I've been here.
Is there a line item in the event that we needed to use outside attorneys? Would that come from that $10,000, or there need to be an additional line item for that if that were to happen?
That would be an
Typically, that
additional
would come-
line item.
Can you still hear me? There is
Yes, ma'am.
there's another line item for outside counsel should you need it. You look, scroll down in the budget category. Third line from the bottom.
The second contractual legal.
Yeah, there's two different ones.
$20,000 overall budgetary wise for legal services.
And
Yes, ma'am.
generally speaking, that second one is not spent because and you're not going to need it unless there's an unusual situation, a closing perhaps.
Thank you.
Just because something's budgeting does not necessarily mean it will be spent.
Any additional questions? So we would need a motion and a second for the, or actually, correct me if I'm right, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Miller, that can be filed away. We don't need an approval on the financial.
Yes, that's correct. No votes required on that.
So, thank you. So the next item on the agenda is old business. Again, from the February meeting. Staff was attempting to put together a state of the market retreat for both the EDA and the PPIC. Subsequently, there were changes to the PPIC. But the state of the market retreat was really to give everyone a baseline, if you will, and kind of an understanding of where Portsmouth stands when it comes to economic development in the region and how we compete, how competitive we are. With the change in the boards and the individuals involved, that meeting was set to, or that retreat was set to be April the 30th, which would have been this Friday. Since, again, because of that change, we have decided to postpone the retreat. We do not have a subsequent date to do that, but we're looking at late summer to bring the speakers in. It was going to be about 4 speakers from the various groups as far as retail or commercial, industrial, office, and multifamily or residential. To kind of, again, give you a baseline of where we are as a city, as a locality. We are really looking forward to that retreat. Again, the speakers that we lined up, they were committed to April the 30th. They understand the change, but it looks like later this summer is what's going to work for everyone to do this again. So just wanted to bring that to your attention. I think we also spoke about that in each one of you all's one-on-ones with staff. Any questions?
Mr. Moore, I do have a question. This is Sarah. Quick question. So when you say late summer, are you talking more so like in August or?
More like August, September.
There's no way to do that sooner?
Again, it's all going to be on the speakers. If we can get the same speakers, again, when you start getting into the summer and you're talking about travel and so on and so forth, the summer is a big time for commercial real estate and economic development folks from a travel standpoint, not only just from a personal standpoint as far as vacations, but also, most people are kind of in that office and we're opening back up pretty much from a pandemic standpoint. So everybody's kind of on the road pretty much between June of this year and probably August. So we can attempt to make it earlier, but it's also going to be, we like to do it with EDA. So we're going to have to try to coordinate schedules. So we can attempt to do it early.
I would vote for aiming towards the end of May then to get this running start. I think the commission, the new board is very invested.
Certainly. So we will look to see if we can do it in May. Can't promise anything. We'll have to check with the speakers that we have lined up. And if not, we'd have to find some additional speakers. But we can certainly attempt to do that.
This is Angelique. I concur with that.
Certainly. The other thing is talking to the EDA, which we'll have to poll them and see if they'll be available at the end of May. We'd like to have both boards.
Mr. Moore, this is Arnett.
Yes.
Is this on the weekend? Because I'm going to have federal jury duty at the end of May. So would this be on the weekend?
This would be during the week. So again, the previous one was scheduled for Friday, April 30th. We try to find a day that works for everyone because it will be about 4 hours from like a 10 to 2, 9 to 1 time frame. So
Mr. Moore, I'm sorry.
Yes.
I didn't mean to interject. This was going to be virtual. Is that correct?
Yes. But it'll still be about a 3 to 4 hour time frame. But yes, it will be virtual. Any additional questions?
Was everything for this Friday?
I'm sorry?
Was everything already canceled for this Friday?
Yes.
This is a mirror. I'm not proposed for any date because if it's virtual, I feel like I could do that anywhere. So as long as I know, in advance, then I'll be good to go.
No problem. So we will reach out to EDA and see what work, does the end of May work for them? And if not, then we'll attempt to do June.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Moore.
You're welcome. Any other questions or comments? All right, so moving on to new business. Again, with a new board, we have a need to fill several positions, including chair, vice chair, and treasurer. Now, typically, we would, the terms would end in June of this year. So this morning, we would need to get those 3 positions filled. Again, that will go until June, which would be your annual meeting. And then at your annual meeting, you would vote again. And then the chair, vice chair, and treasurer would have 2-year terms from that point forward. Any questions on that?
I have a question.
Yeah.
And I understand typically that it would be until June, but at this stage of the game, does it have to be till June? Could the commission today go ahead and vote, go ahead for a full term?
Mr. Miller, I'm going to ask you that question just to make sure I'm clear that we can do that.
I believe the board could vote to do that. If you want to go ahead and take a motion second and vote to have the offices you're electing right now serve for the period until July 1 and then for a 2-year term from July 1, I think you can do that.
If the fellow board members have no issue with that, that would just, take one less thing off that the commission has to do in relatively almost a month and a half, 2 months.
Don't our commissions expire next December? So we would be voting, I guess this is a question for Mr. Miller. If it's a 2-year term from June, that's past when our commissions expire. Is that going to present an issue?
I believe you actually all have different expiration dates for your terms. I think they're staggered, but I think you can elect anyone the chair, and if the chair comes off the board before the end of the term, then a new chair can be elected at that time to fill the remaining term.
And Mr. Miller, correct me if I'm wrong, you just need a motion. We don't, or chair, for example.
Yes, I think if the board desires to have the full 2-year terms from July, I think it would be appropriate to take a motion on that first.
Okay.
Motion second, vote on that. And then anyone, once you're doing the actual elections, anyone can submit names for any office. It can be your own name, and no second is required for anybody to be nominated.
Thank you. So we need a motion first, second, for the approval of term for positions.
I'm hearing a lot of background noise. I couldn't hear what you said, Mr. Moore.
So we would first need, if you want to do the 2-year term, we would need a motion and a second and a vote to approve the 2-year terms, starting again, going from now to July 1, and then from July 1, we need that motion second right now.
So I have the motion for approval. This is Amira.
I
Okay,
second. This is
and who was that
Sarah.
on? All right, thank you. Any discussion of the motion? All right, hearing none. Ms. Allen,
Yes.
Ms. Bethia,
Yes.
Ms. Swain,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Ms. Pena,
Yes.
thank you, and Ms. Rogers Garner.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. So it'll be, the decisions will go from, or positions will go from now until July 1, and then from July 1 until 2 years from that date. So now I need a nomination for chair.
I would like to nominate Ms. Allen for chair.
Any other nominations? All right, Mr. Miller, we can just vote. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Hearing no other nominations, roll call vote. Allen,
That's so kind of you. Thank you. Oh, I'm
is that a
sorry.
yes?
Yes.
Okay, not a problem. Ms. Peel,
Yes.
Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Ms. Pena,
Yes.
and Ms. Rogers Garner.
Yes.
All right, well, congratulations, Ms. Allen. You are the new chair of the PPIC.
Thank you. I appreciate your vote of confidence in me. Thank you.
All right, we will now need a nomination for vice chair.
I would like to nominate Mr. Parr. This is Arnett.
All right. Thank
Angelia
you.
Allen, I'll second that.
Any other nominations? All right,
I'm sorry,
roll call vote.
my audio cut out. Who was nominated?
You.
That was you, sir.
You.
I cannot accept the nomination. Is that fine for me to refuse?
Yes.
My hands are so tied with the Democratic Civic League. If no one else wants to step up, I'm fine, but I really would prefer. I nominate Sarah Gardner Lee.
And I was going to nominate myself. This is Amira.
Well, I accept the nomination. This is Ms. Rogers Garner.
Okay, so
That's-
let me
I
back
second
up
for
real quick.
Amir.
Okay, give me 1 second. So I think, Mr. Miller, we had a motion and a second for Mr. Paul. So do we need to vote on that and reject that first?
Well, I think Mr. Parr can reject the nomination. Is that what you're
Okay.
doing, Mr. Parr? You want to reject the nomination?
Yes, I would like to reject the nomination.
So then we have now 2 nominations. One for Ms. Rogers Garner and Ms. Bethea. So, Mr. Miller, again, Robert's Rules of Order, do we need to take a vote on both? Because we did have a second for Ms. Bethea.
I think it would be a roll call, and the person being called can present who they're voting for.
Okay. So let's do that. So if you all could state when you do the roll call vote, who you are voting for, and then we will decide from there. All right, so Ms. Allen, you are up first.
Ms. Rogers Garner.
Okay. Ms. Bethea.
Myself.
Okay. Ms. McSwain.
Ms. Bethea.
Okay. Mr. Parr.
Mrs. Rogers Gardner.
Okay. Ms. Pena.
Ms. Rogers Garner.
All right. And Ms. Rogers Garner.
Myself.
All right. So just to check with Mr. Miller, just to be clear, Ms. Rogers Garner has the most votes, so Ms. Rogers Garner would be the vice chair.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So congratulations, Ms. Rogers Garner, for being nominated as and chosen as the vice chair for PPIC.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr.
The
Moore, I'd
next,
also like to thank Ms. Bethea for her willingness to serve in vice chair capacity.
certainly noted. All right. The last appointment will be appointment of treasurer. Do you have a nomination?
I'd like to
I would
nominate
like
Ms.
to
Bethea.
nominate Ms. Bethea. I second it.
All right. All right. And who was the second? I apologize. That was that Ms.
Ms.
Rogers
Rogers,
Garner?
Ms. Yes, sir.
Thank you. All right. Any other nominations? All right, hearing none. Roll call vote, Ms. Allen,
Absolutely, yeah.
Ms. Bethea.
Yes, and thank you for the nomination.
All right. Ms. McSwain,
Yes.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Ms. Pena,
Yes.
Ms. Rogers Garner.
Absolutely, yes.
Right. So that motion carries. So congratulations, Ms. Bethea, for being nominated and chosen as treasurer for the PPIC. Next item on the agenda, now I can say chair and vice chair, is a budget ad hoc committee. You all have a need to approve your budget by next month's meeting. You all should have received a copy of your current budget, and we will be sending out to you today the proposed FY22 budget for the entire board to review. But typically there is a budget ad hoc committee that is appointed to sit down with staff to go through the budget line by line. So chair, typically that would be your decision as to who the two members would be for the budget discussion with staff.
I would like to serve on that ad hoc committee to go through with staff and take a consensus as to who would like to be the second person to join me.
I would say I would like to be the second person, or is the treasurer automatically placed?
The treasurer would typically be on that, budget ad hoc. So
Okay.
that would.
How many people are normally on the ad hoc committee? How many do you need? Two?
Two. Anything more than two, talking about PPIC business would constitute a meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
What will happen is you would discuss that, the ad hoc would discuss it with staff and propose any changes. And then at the May meeting, you all will discuss the meeting as a group, as part of your meeting, and then hopefully approve that budget at that time. We would need to, as best as possible, have it approved at that time so that we can add it to the city's budget in their budget books. So you will have a chance, certainly as a group, as a board, to weigh in. I would also say, as you review the budget, to reach out to your ad hoc committee and let them know of any questions, comments, or concerns that you may have, so that when they sit down with staff, we can have those discussions.
Mrs. Rogers Garner, are you interested in serving in that capacity?
No, ma'am. I was just trying to get understanding of how what the makeup of the ad hoc committee is.
Okay.
So just to recap, the budget ad hoc would be the chair, Ms. Allen, and then the treasurer, Ms. Bethea. And Ms. Angela Shepherd, this is going to the next item, FY22 budget. Ms. Angela Shepherd will reach out to you all to set up a meeting to sit down with staff as well as finance staff to have a conversation about that budget.
Okay, great.
All right. Again, that covers the last two items on new business. We do not have a need to go into closed session. Next up would be, typically in your meetings, we try to have and make sure we have an update from the Port of Virginia. This morning we have from the Port of Virginia, Mr. Chris Gullickson, their business development representative. And Chris, I apologize, I know I'm tearing up your title. And then also the government affairs liaison, Mr. Thomas, what is your last name? I apologize, Thomas Cross. And Thomas Cross is new to this role, but I won't steal his thunder. I'll let Chris start off with that.
Well, good morning, Robert, Brian. It's great to see you both. And also just want to give a warm welcome to all the new members on the PPIC. As Robert mentioned, Chris Gullickson, Director of Economic Development for the Port of Virginia. I joke, but it's not. It's heartfelt. Obviously, we couldn't have the Port of Virginia without Portsmouth, and that's the truth. And that's really, why our engagement, involvement with economic development at the city level is consistent and constant, as well as this board, the PPIC. So it is an opportunity that we really appreciate the time that is given to us in front of this commission. So thank you to Robert and Brian. It's been, like I said, very consistent and constant and fruitful in our efforts to recruit and attract new economic development opportunities, not only to Virginia and to the port, but more importantly to Portsmouth. So again, I want to say thank you. I'll give a brief port update, but first I do want to take a moment to introduce or allow my colleague Thomas Cross to make his introduction. Thomas.
Good morning, everybody. Very, very excited to be here. Obviously, I'm all of 1 week on the job, so I'm still learning the ropes, that's for sure. Had the opportunity to meet Robert and Brian last week and look forward to meeting all of you and continuing to foster the relationship between Portsmouth and the port. I think we've got some exciting things on the horizon. And again, however I can be a resource for you, I look forward to working together. And thank you all for your time this morning.
Great. Thank you, Thomas. And it is truly a collaboration across our economic development team and our government affairs team, working with the city of all aspects. So I do want to take a moment, and being a new board, I will sort of start at a high level, but then I will drill down into what we're seeing at this moment over our docks here at the Port of Virginia. So as I think most of you have seen over the past 36 months, the port has undertaken a pretty expansive expansion project to add additional capacity, both in Norfolk at Norfolk International Terminals, but more importantly at Virginia National Gateway, Portsmouth. That facility has doubled in capacity, and in today, as it stands, that project is fully built out and functioning at a very efficient and fluid fashion. The timing of this capacity coming online couldn't have happened at a more ideal time, as the Port of Virginia did experience some freight decline when COVID first really took its grips on the world. Cargo coming in about July of last year really rebounded, and since July, we have seen record cargo volumes flowing over the docks. And just to put it in perspective, typically in the port world, the month of October would be our busy month. That's usually where we see the most freight. October was very busy, but so was November, December, January, and it just hasn't stopped. So looking back at March, our most recent numbers that we've published, it was our second busiest month in the history of the Port of Virginia. March typically isn't a busy month. And well, that's exciting. And historically, ports appreciate some of those downtimes. It's just the nature of the business. But in Virginia, we were different. We made humongous investments in adding capacity, and that is all coming online it's all online today as we speak. So as other ports struggle to handle what is record volumes, both on the East and West Coast, the Port of Virginia remains fluid, and we're seeing customers divert freight to our port, allowing the port to really prove itself. And we are really optimistic that not only cargo will remain coming through the Port of Virginia, but we have a track record of showing that freight actually turns into economic development opportunities, where companies begin to really look for bricks and mortar and looking to land that cargo and either do an additional value add to that freight or even deconsolidate that freight. But these are all jobs that are tied back to the activities that are going on at the Port of Virginia. So it really couldn't be a more exciting time when we look at the container side of the business. I would be remiss if I didn't talk also about some of the interest and activity around the renewable space. I know that's a very big topic, both at the federal and state level, around renewable energy, and the Port of Virginia has a role to play in that future development. And more in particular, we look at Portsmouth Marine Terminal. I think PMT not only has been a wonderful facility for the port for many, many years, it really is at a position today to really serve as a potential loadout staging site for the future development of offshore wind up and down the U.S. East Coast. To date, we've already had one announcement there at PMT a little over a year ago prior to COVID in January of 2020. The governor was down to announce, and our Board of Commissioners authorized our executive director to lease up to 40 acres at PMT to what is the global leader of offshore wind development, a company by the name of Ørsted. So they are continuing to be actively engaged and part of the conversation. We also continue to work with other aspects of offshore wind to facilitate future, not only cargo and freight opportunities, but more importantly, the creation of jobs tied to this new industry, jobs that provide a living wage, and jobs more importantly for the citizens of Portsmouth. So we are very much working in sequence with the city, as well as the State Department of Economic Development, called the Virginia Economic Development Partnership, and the regional group as well here in Hampton Roads has taken really a nice leadership role as well as standing up an offshore wind initiative that has been funded through grants through the Go Virginia program, which I know Brian and Robert are both very supportive and also supportive, but also participating in the efforts for this organization, the Hampton Roads Alliance, to stand up an offshore wind supply chain here within the greater Hampton Roads region. So it's a real exciting time. Very willing to answer any questions. But again, I want to thank Brian and Robert for their leadership, not only as economic developers, but also leadership of the PPIC. So thank you for that. Yes, Bryce.
Thank you.
Ms. Chair, may I ask a question? So when you said that we doubled in capacity, what is the total capacity of the Virginia National Gateway as it stands now? And what was the amount in March, which you said was the second biggest month? And then just if you know off the top of your head, what was
happy to get into this now. Sure thing. I'm happy to answer that. So when VIG, Virginia National Gateway, was first developed, it had an annual throughput capacity of about 1 million TEUs, or 20-foot equivalent units. Okay, and so that was 15 stacks, semi-automated stacks had that capacity. We've since almost doubled it, added 13 additional stacks, equating to $320 million, and that added an additional 1 million TEUs. So I think it's 2 million TEUs safely can flow through that terminal on an annual basis. When we look at the volume numbers, we handle nearly 280,000 TEUs, 20-foot equivalent units, in the month of March. So just shy of 280. And I think can't remember what year our best we got a little over 280 one time, but I'm excited to see how April's shaping up. You don't want to obviously count your chickens before they hatch, but obviously we've continued to see a positive trend upward on the cargo volumes in the month of April.
Now, is that 2 million TEU per annum or per month?
Yes, it is. It would be per annum. And that's not to say we handle that. I mean, as a port complex in the year of our most recent calendar year, so 2020 obviously wasn't the best year because some of the beginning parts of COVID were very impactful to everyone's business. We did about 2.75 million TEUs, and realize if we look at the overall complex, we're talking about approximately 4.5 million TEUs of total throughput capacity as it stands today. For fiscal year 21, if we got close to 3 million, it'd be a record. It'd be very exciting. We've gotten close in years past. So you always want to, as you can imagine from an operational perspective, you want to have a situation with extra capacity. So when those opportunities do present themselves, you can bring on new freight, new cargo, so you continue to grow. And also, it just is prudent to not, be right at 100% operational capacity, because if you have any hiccup, then you really, as you can imagine, it's very complex. Just look at the Suez Canal blockage with the Ever Given and sort of the ripple effect that had in the supply chain. So we're in a very healthy position, and it's exciting times for Virginia.
Thank you.
Chris, correct me if I'm wrong. I think you mentioned to me that it was just 354 shy of our all-time monthly volume.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. So I mean, it's that close. So again, I think we're excited to see the volume continues to stay strong. So that's a good thing.
All right, any other questions? All right, well, thank you, Mr. Gullickson, Mr. Cross. Appreciate you being out here every month and providing that update, and we look forward to many more updates.
Yeah, and also I would just, Brian, so Robert, I want to make one, when the time is right, you know, we'd love to get the PPIC, and again, we would do it in such a fashion, maybe a couple members at a time, but we'd love to have some folks visit and see the facility firsthand. That's something we have done in previous times, and trying to be mindful of COVID policies and whatnot. We still would be more than happy to facilitate tours. So maybe that's something over the summer. We can sort of stagger it to meet all the protocols, and we can have some folks from the PPIC visit Virginia National Gateway.
Thank you, that'd be great.
Yeah.
That's a great idea.
Yep.
Yeah, that would be good.
Thank you.
All right, Chair, if you don't mind, we'll go to the next item on the agenda.
Feel free.
All right. So the next item is an item that we've added to the agenda most recently over the last several months, which is items submitted by commissioners. This is the opportunity for commissioners to come to the meeting with any questions for staff, and then we would typically follow up the next month to give you a full explanation or comment on the questions that you may have. We did receive an email from Mr. Parr yesterday. And typically I would say, we would answer that at the next meeting. But because we are going to be talking about the budget next month, wanted to make sure you all kind of had a heads up or some understanding of a couple things on the budget. Mr. Parr's question was with regards to grants that PPIC has given out over the last 4 years. And that's a pretty simple answer. But again, going with the budget ad hoc committee being created, and we'll be sitting down talking about the budget come next May, or come May's meeting, I want to make sure you have this information. Essentially, the EDA has only given out one grant in the last 4 years. And when I say that, that is effectively officially giving money from the EDA, from the PPIC, I'm sorry, to a project. That grant was a $180,000 grant. That was the matching grant for the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund that was given to Lineage Logistics by the state of Virginia. As part of the Commonwealth Opportunity Fund, there is a requirement that there is a local match for any grant that is given from the state through that fund. The PPIC did back in 2019 approve that grant. That grant is paid out at $60,000 each year for the next 3 years, each time that they achieve or reach 20 new positions hired. They have not started that hiring yet. They are still in the process of finishing the building itself. So I anticipate that will be done later this summer, late summer, right around the August, September timeframe. And then they will again look to hire 60 new people. And based off of that 60, again, every time they approve and bring in 20 people and have that documented, which they have to document with the state anyway, then $60,000 goes to the Lineage Logistics. You are, as the PPIC, the pass-through vehicle for the Port Host Community Revitalization Fund, which is through the state. Again, you are a pass-through. The monies that are awarded from the state come to the city, go to the PPIC, and then as they meet the requirements for the grant, that money is dispersed. There were 2 grants awarded, one in 2019 and one in 2020. And again, to kind of refresh everyone from a process standpoint, this grant is only available to 5 localities in the state of Virginia: Portsmouth, Norfolk, Hampton, Newport News, and Front Royal. Okay. And essentially, there is money allocated to each locality. We all now can receive up to $200,000, if you will, of guaranteed grant money should there be a project that is ready to go within the next 18 months, or within 18 months of approving the application. This grant went into effect in 2019, the first award was given out in 2019. You can imagine not every calendar or every year, effective July 1, not everyone will have a project. Not every locality will have a project ready to go. In that instance, there's an opportunity for a locality to ask for additional money. So as you can see over the last 2 years, each year we've asked for $500,000 specifically for a project. The first project was by the IRG Industrial Realty Group for redevelopment of the former Cogentrix power plant, which is the old coal firing plant adjacent to the port. That was for $500,000, and then in 2020, another $500,000 for the redevelopment of the second half of the BASF site. Now, there is a match required for this, and that is done by the developer. So the developer shares the cost, if you will, and this is really a reimbursement. Keep in mind that Virginia is a show me state when it comes to incentives. So there is not an upfront incentive that is given by the state. It is all after the fact. Jobs have to be created, investment has to be made before incentives are given out. And typically that's how we look to, in the locality level, that's also how we look to disperse any type of, or really approve any type of incentive. We look at, again, the capital investment or CapEx, and then we look at the job creation. There was a standalone grant that was provided by PPIC several years ago, 2010, for PER properties. They are a company that they have several different variations of their business, but one of them is concrete crushing. Another one is a granary that they are looking to build in Portsmouth. That grant is on the books at $300,000, again, paid out over 5 years, $60,000 a year. That grant was put into effect because they were expanding, again, this granary in Portsmouth. That was some time ago. We are working with legal to find out how long this can go on. They are still in the throes of trying to build this facility. However, it has not happened. And there's this automatic renewal on this. So we're looking into how long this will stay on the books, if you will. But those are the only grants that the PPIC has given out since 2010.
So
but you will see those budget.
Mr. Moore, so there was no activity besides the 60,000 per year between 2010 and 2019?
No.
No. And has PER received the full 300,000, I guess,
They have
since
not
2015?
They have not received anything because they have not built the facility.
Gotcha. Another question for the Development Opportunity Fund for Lineage Logistics. Those 20 jobs, meaning they would receive the 60,000, are they seasonal jobs? Are they permanent? And did we provide any sort of stipulations about hiring Portsmouth residents?
No, these are full-time equivalent jobs. There's no stipulation on hiring Portsmouth specific folks. They have a desire to hire locally and hire Portsmouth individuals, but there's no mandate, which you technically cannot do. You can ask and you push for, and that's why we have, separate and apart from this, we have our workforce development program, which is Portsmouth at Work, where we're trying to make sure that our residents are ready for any job that is created here in Portsmouth. So to kind of combat that same or kind of meet that desire, make sure our folks are ready. So any job that comes in, they're trained and ready to go. But no, there is no mandate on that. Again, they have a desire to do it, but not a mandate.
So when you say full-time equivalent, does that mean, what is the meaning of that? Like 2,000, they would be 2,080 hours a year per employee, or?
Yes. These are full-time positions. These are full-time positions, and this could be anything from someone working in the freezer storage warehouse itself, all the way up to management. They have to create 60 new jobs.
Now,
That
if
is
they
their
were
commitment.
to, I'm sorry to keep going, but if they were to hire these 60 people and then shut down the next day, is there a way for Portsmouth, or the way for us to get that money back because those positions no longer exist?
So there are clawback provisions with regards to a time frame. Typically, it's over a 5 period, but that's in your standard development agreement that's signed between the state, the developer or the project itself, and then there's also a development agreement between the locality and the state to make sure that everything is everyone's on the same page and understands the requirements for the grant.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I have a question. Do we gather any data from the companies that we provide grants to, that how many jobs are created that are Portsmouth residents are gaining?
No, we don't gather that. Again, this is the only grant that we've had in the last 10 years. Again, that the PPIC has given out. We can certainly ask for that information. I don't know necessarily if they're exactly tracking that, but we can certainly ask for that. They have to provide to the state every year a report as to the jobs created and when they were filled, so on and so forth, in order to again stay eligible for that $60,000. But there's nothing in there that again mandates or states to track how many local individuals are hired.
I just think from a standpoint of making sure that our residents, I'd like to know if our residents are having the opportunity to take part of those jobs that sound like good living wage paying jobs, since we are providing grants to them. Not that it's a mandate, but I'd be curious to know, are our people in Portsmouth getting these jobs?
Certainly, we can ask that question. Any other questions? All right, so typically, again, if this was something that was sent to us, and I'm just using Mr. Parr as the example, just because he sent it to us yesterday, what we would do is typically bring that question to the board and say, we received this question and we'll attempt to have the answer the following month, just because most of the time it's going to be something, unless it's something simple or something that's necessary at that exact moment in time, like the budget. But just to make you all aware, you could also just wait till the meeting and certainly present it. That way, everyone at the meeting can hear the same question, because someone else may have that same question.
I have a question. So for example, if someone submitted a question to you today after this meeting, we wouldn't get the answer until June?
No. Well, no. What we would do is, depending on the question, we want to make sure that, you all have your answers that you need. But if it's something that, again, the board should also hear, as best we can, we will try to have an answer for you. And again, make sure that everyone is up to date. We would probably also ask that if someone has a question that they want to ask staff, that it go through the chair, and then the chair can reach out to staff. That way everyone can get the response back and hear the same question. Again, I'm speaking specifically about if someone were to bring an item during this time at the meeting, that's when typically, you would get it the following month, because we wouldn't.
Oh, okay.
We wouldn't have the answer. Yes, sir.
I have a couple of items for next month. Could we look into, I'm not sure if the go-to meeting is part of our budget, if it's something set by the city or something set by the EDA, but if we could align with the city and either do Teams or get Zoom, it just seems like it's difficult to run, and we've had a ton of feedback, and the audio keeps going in and out. So I'm not sure when our license renews for GoTo, but if we wanted to look into a different software, if that's in our purview. I don't know if that's in our purview, but if it is, I'd like to look at that. And then two,
yes,
to
sir.
understand, go ahead.
I was just going to answer that question. I apologize. Staff, that comes out of our budget.
Okay.
And typically we use GoTo because we can control it's easier to control who should and should not be in, for example, closed session. But we can certainly look at some other.
Yeah, I know City Council uses Teams. This is just my first experience with it, so I'm not sure if this has been a past issue or not, but I just wanted to bring it up because I would have liked to have seen the fellow commissioners, in their video, and I'm sure they feel a little, not being able to see us, especially since we can't meet together during COVID. The second item I wanted to bring up was in the PPIC's purview, are we allowed to encourage development for private port maritime ports within Portsmouth or other localities. For instance, all along Victory Boulevard, behind the neighborhood of Craddock, there's a lot of zoned industrial land that's not being used. And there is the Enviva Port of Chesapeake right there. I know that's in Chesapeake, so that's not necessarily something we're focused on, but that land along Victory Boulevard is within Portsmouth and zoned for industrial use. Is that something that we can try to acquire land, flip land, and encourage development along that corridor for eventually maritime, use in conjunction with the Enviva Port of Chesapeake?
So certainly you all have the purview to be able to acquire land. Keep in mind that you all do not receive an appropriation from the city. So any monies that you put out coming directly from your bank account. And then you would make your monies, if you will, by selling the property. Not sure exactly which property you're speaking of on Victory Boulevard, but I think any strategic acquisition, we discussed that in closed session. But certainly
Sure.
your purview would be to acquire property, and I think that pushes the envelope forward from an economic development standpoint for us. Again, a lot of that property that's industrial along Victory Boulevard is in Chesapeake. There's actually a large swath of land you have to go through Portsmouth to get to it in Chesapeake. It's about 98 acres, but certainly that is in your purview.
Sure. Would it be possible by the next meeting to have a report on the status of ownership and the assessments of the properties from the St. Julian Creek's annex down to Paradise Creek Nature Park? There's a corridor that includes like ABC Supply Co. That's out there, like the tile and roofing company. There's a whole that are in Portsmouth.
Yeah,
I'm not
so
speaking about going into Chesapeake with the Enviva port, but there is that corridor.
Yeah, we can have that conversation. That would be more of a closed session item, but yes, we can pull that information and have that for you for the next meeting.
Thank you.
Any other items by commissioners? All right, Chair, there are no other items on the agenda. So the next meeting is actually Tuesday, May 23rd at 8 a.m. Again, that will be virtual. We will look at opportunities from a standpoint of the type of virtual meeting we have. I believe we've already paid for a substantial amount of these, so but we will certainly look into that.
Now, when will we get together to go over the agenda for the next meeting?
So typically the chair and vice chair, we get together the week before the meeting. And so we'll look to do that the Tuesday before, which I think will be the 16th of May.
Okay. Well, if there is no other business for us to conduct, I move for an adjournment.
Second. Quick frame.
Thank you guys so much for your time. And the information was very valuable that we have today. We look forward to the retreat that's going to come up and getting set up for us to go visit the port as well.
I think Ms. Rogers Gardner had something to add, but she's muted. I think she said she was muted by the organizer.
Thank you. I'll just put it on the agenda for the next meeting. I don't want to prolong it, but thank you for.
Okay. So are we adjourned, Chair? Ms. Rogers Garner, did you want to say?
Go ahead. I wanted to make sure that she made her point or whatever she wanted to bring for the next meeting.
Yeah, I'll just bring it for the next meeting. Also, on this platform, there is not a way for you to type in and say when you're having difficulties or to be unmuted or something like that. I'm not seeing that option for myself.
Okay. Yeah, we will look into that.
There is
looking
a
at
chat
staff.
option, isn't there?
There is
I
actually,
don't
right?
have it right now. I don't have that chat option.
Yeah, there's a chat option. I'm looking at it on the screen, but we'll have to see what we typically don't have these. If you go back and look at other meetings, we typically don't have this type of hang up. So we'll have to see and troubleshoot to see why this is happening. But there is a chat feature on the right-hand side of the screen.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
I'm sorry, just one more thing. Do we have a plan that as soon as city council returns to chambers, of us resuming meeting in person ASAP? Because that change could happen between now and our next meeting. And would we be prepared on May 23rd to meet safely in our normal physical location?
We are prepared to, as soon as council makes the motion or makes the change, we are prepared to meet in person. That will actually be held in order for it to be safely done. That would actually be held in the potentially in the town bank building at 200 High Street, Suite 201. We have a brand new classroom slash again Portsmouth at Work Center that can house people safely 6 feet apart. The city council conference room has a round table, so it does not lend itself to folks being 6 feet apart and everyone being at the table to speak. So we do have a plan. As soon as they say yes, we will have that meeting.
Is there any other business or anybody that want to bring anything to the table prior to the closing of this meeting?
I don't have anything.
Again, I'd like to thank everybody for their willingness to serve. I look forward to working with each and every one of you. And this meeting is adjourned.